I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I think I've had to tell you this will be my 5th time.
Well, that means you don't go to many funerals. That's good.
Thank goodness.
And when I go to funerals, I don't wear ties. I don't wear ties.
Before going into the formal agenda, which is the approval of the agenda, I am pleased to see that we have former board member Ray Unger with us today. Phil?
Yes.
I believe we have our
Goodie bag. Holy cow.
goodie bag, yes. And, you know, it's a little light for a 6-pack worth. But
Stop on the way home.
stop on the way home. Yeah, Ray, I mean, it was a pleasure serving on the board with you for 2 years, and we're gonna be sorry to see you go.
Well-
You had a certain amount of charm to any group that you're in.
I had a ball, great bunch of people. I enjoyed it. I was treated well. I think we all have a lot of respect for each other, and thank you very much.
We now move to the approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as stands?
One comment, Dave.
Yes.
We don't have any provisions on here for public comment, and I think that we have to have, at least allow public comments at our meeting.
I don't know what the protocol on former meetings are, but I have no objection. If there's no objection, let's allow for public comment. And, yes?
Yes, I noticed that the agenda includes the appointment of the following positions: assistant treasurer, recording, all those things. Is that correct? That part of the agenda?
That's
correct. I would like to suggest that we not address at this meeting 2 of those items. Number C, legal counsel, and number D, auditors. And the reason is, I think, let me address the auditors first. There's an audit committee that exists. It consists of Bill Rako and myself and Brian Roberts, who is chair of the Budget and Finance Committee. Following the audit, we met with the auditors. We have not reported back to the board on our meeting with the auditors and our recommendation with respect to the retention of the auditor for the following year. I think it appropriate that we have that opportunity to do that, make that recommendation to the board, and then have the board act to appoint the auditors for next year. So that's my recommendation there. On the legal counsel question, I believe, Dave, as you know, I requested an opportunity to meet with Joe Moore, legal counsel, at the earliest possible time, and I believe you scheduled that for immediately following this meeting. And I, as a new board member, would like the opportunity to have a little input into that, a little more knowledge before we actually formally embrace that. So I think it's, from my standpoint, I'd rather have a little discussion about that before actually being called upon to vote on it here at my first board meeting.
Okay, so what basically you're doing is offering a motion to postpone 2 agenda items
That is correct.
until a specific date, or?
The next regular meeting of the board would seem appropriate to me, so I would make that motion.
I need a second.
Second.
You got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Can I make a comment, Dave?
Yes.
As the chairman of this audit subcommittee, in no way do we imply anything other than the opportunity and the proper right to discuss this and then vote on it later rather than just an automatic appointment. There's no, nothing.
Thank you, Bill. He's absolutely right.
Was that unanimous?
Yes.
Are there any other amendments to the,
I do have
To
a
the
question.
agenda, sure.
On the auditors, do we have a contract with them? And is it a continuous contract or is it a 1-year contract?
We have an engagement letter with them
Okay.
that we look at, and that's what we'll do. We'll look at the letter and continue, right?
Yes, let me comment on that. A 1-year contract with an auditor would not be a very favorable thing to the organization, in my opinion. You need the continuing knowledge and experience of the auditing firm as you do legal counsel. there's a benefit to having that knowledge base as you move forward year after year. So we do have an engagement letter that sets forth each year the terms for that particular year, including the fee. So yes, that is something that is in place.
Is it a contract or an engagement letter, Tom?
Well, it's a three-year engagement.
Appointment. It's a 3-year appointment, right?
And when is that up? And the reason why I'm asking, Pete, this may be a moot point. If it isn't up,
Not necessarily. I think we can act at any time if we feel that we're not getting the proper service or there are issues with anyone, and particularly in an auditing firm. I think we would suggest a change, even if it's prior to the expiration of a particular period of time.
Okay.
And I think we have that right, and I think they acknowledge that.
Okay.
But again, I just think it's, as Bill said quite well, I think it's just an opportunity for the board to have a little input before it makes that appointment.
Well, you're suggesting that you're going to meet with the auditors.
We already have.
We already have, I was there. I'm just wondering, okay, we get to the September meeting, and on the agenda of the September meeting will be the appointment of legal counsel and the auditors.
Yes.
So basically, nothing has changed. We're
Right.
not talking
Just
about
postponing
other
it.
meetings of the committee or anything like that.
Right.
Or recommendations.
Correct.
I just want to clarify that. Any other discussion, comments? Any other amendments to the agenda? Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we will move on to the swearing in of the new board members by our corporate counsel.
All right, gentlemen. I will say that a former board member asked me what authority I had as general counsel to swear in members of the board, and I reminded him I'm a notary public. So therefore, by the law of Maryland, I have the right to swear you all in. And Mr. President, as is my tradition, I will not charge the association any notary fees for doing so. But gentlemen, if you would raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Peter D. Comstock Jr.,
Do hereby pledge
do hereby pledge
to serve the people of Ocean Pines
to serve the people of Ocean Pines
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and to adhere to the principles
and to adhere to the principles
as defined in the Ocean Pines corporate documents
As defined
defined in the Ocean Pines corporate documents
which govern the association.
which govern the association.
Very good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're now properly blessed.
congratulations.
At this point in time, following our normal procedures, Joe will provide another explanation of the OPA governing documents and the duties of the board for the benefit of the two new board members.
And this is traditional also. I usually go through the documents and the statutes under the law of Maryland which govern Ocean Pines. As you know, of course, Ocean Pines is not a municipality. It is a homeowners association and is therefore governed by the board of directors, which is duly elected by the members. And I usually go down the governing documents by order of their significance. First of all, the association, as all homeowners associations, is governed by the Maryland Homeowners Association. 11B of the property article of the annotated. And actually, the Maryland Homeowners Association Act was implemented subject to the requirements of the legislature, which were focusing really on the obligation of persons who were selling property and developing property and creating homeowners associations. So a large amount of the Homeowners Association Act relates to the obligation of vendors to sell property within the homeowners association area. However, the statute does include several important factors with respect to the governance of a Maryland Homeowners Association. I have said in the past that Ocean Pines is probably the third largest homeowners association in the state of Maryland. I now believe it is the second largest, subject only to Columbia, which is a homeowners association rather than an incorporated community. And therefore, the governing provisions related to Ocean Pines are, of course, very important. The Homeowners Association Act governs various matters which are related to homeowners association functions. The Homeowners Association is defined as an incorporated or unincorporated association having authority to enforce the provisions of a declaration. And of course, as you all know, there are declarations of restrictions applicable to each section of Ocean Pines. Matters of importance in the Homeowners Association Act related to your function are meeting requirements, the fact that books and records of the association are subject to inspection by any member, and that it requires a homeowners association depository in the circuit court land records. And I will say, thanks to Mr. Rako, the homeowners association depository related to Ocean Pines is now spick and span and up to date. But it reposes in the land records of Worcester County, and I think Bill will be the first one to acknowledge that when he asked for it, I don't think anybody knew where it was.
They spent 2 hours looking for it.
That's right, because it's not recorded in the land records, it's simply deposited in the association, in the clerk of court's office. But the homeowners association depository basically is a compilation, and I didn't bring it because it's about that thick, but it's a compilation of all the documents that relate to the homeowners association as it has been passed over the years by the board of directors. Next, of course, are the articles of incorporation of the association, which is the document by which the association derives its legal existence. It is a non-stock corporation under the laws of Maryland. There are some unique functions, but nothing substantially different in the Maryland Corporations and Associations Act with regard to non-stock corporations. But rather than having stock ownership, Ocean Pines Association has membership for the people within the subdivision. The articles of incorporation have been amended numerous times. Actually, the 7th amendment of that document was called Articles of Restatement, which were done when Judge Roger Titus was the association's attorney. And the Articles of Restatement basically are the basic document. We've amended a couple things since, but nothing as substantial as the Articles of Restatement. Next, of course, and most everybody is very familiar with these, are the bylaws of the corporation. The bylaws of the corporation is the operating document, which contains matters such as membership, means of election, board of directors, powers and duties, matters relating to the general manager, and generally is the ongoing document that you all refer to in your business judgment on a regular basis. And then finally, as you all know, Ocean Pines Association throughout the years has adopted and amended and evolved the Architectural Review Committee guidelines and policies. And these are the policies which basically impose upon the property owners the obligations as to various aspects of their property ownership. The declaration of restrictions, which everyone is subject to, including the association, I have described as a contract between the corporation and the property owners. The declaration of restrictions, perhaps somewhat uniquely, are related to each individual section. And the declaration of restrictions in various sections including somewhat notably the Point,
Section 17.
are quite a bit different in some respects than the old Boise restrictive covenants, which occurred back in the early 70s. The association has amended, generally speaking, some provisions of the old Boise Declaration of Restrictions. What I call the Balfour restrictions, which are the villages of Ocean Pines, have evolved from that. And then, of course, the rather unique situation at the Point down at Section 17. But the Declaration of Restrictions have been a subject of debate in the past. It hadn't come up in some time. I have a file, which I don't bring, which is probably about that thick, where when Tony Kantz was president of the association, there was an effort to create a universal Declaration of Restrictions. And there were a large number of hours that were imposed upon that. It did not come about. And I think that basically, all in all, the restrictive covenants, even though they do not precisely mirror each other throughout the community, they work. And probably the evolution of them through the Balfour restrictive covenants has been a good thing. So those are the documents by which you govern. And I suggest to you that I understand that you do get a book with many of those documents in there. Those that you would not have, if any, are in the records of the association in Tom's office, and Phyllis has guarded those for about 35 years, so whatever you can't find in your book, here. So that's basically the overview, and are there any questions?
Any questions?
Two questions. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
First question, the data. If I have the right one.
Restatement.
Yeah.
Marty, I didn't bring it with the restatement was with Roger Titus. That was probably about 1980, maybe.
Okay.
In my packet, which Phyllis has, it's number 7 on the tab. Yeah, what happened was the original declaration, I'm sorry.
August 27th, 82 would be the actual.
82.
Okay, now I just wanted to-
Yeah. Happened, Marty, they were amending and amending and amending, and finally Roger just said, look, we need to restate, because we have 6 documents now that have amended the restrictive, the
sure I'm looking at the right
Articles of
one.
Incorporation.
The other thing is, I noticed in the swearing in,
Yes,
we're talking about the people of Ocean Pines. Shouldn't that be the membership of Ocean Pines?
it probably should. Jim Roberts, I think most of you know, who passed away last year, unfortunately. Dr. Jim Roberts was a member of the association board of directors probably 10 years ago, I guess. And he thought there should be some formalized thing. We've debated that, of course. But you're probably right, because it is your obligation, while it's to the people, is basically to the membership, because that is what the corporate documents and the law requires you to do, and that's related to the membership. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Moving on, I think this would be a good point to, before we get into the election itself, to ask for public comments.
I have a comment.
Yes. Your name and where you live, the normal thing.
My name is Grant Heldy, and I live at 1443 Ocean Parkway.
Yes.
In Ocean Pines. And I made a motion at the, a motion was passed at the general membership meeting just a week or whenever it was, a few weeks ago, to send a resolution, to approve a resolution asking that the Ocean Pines Service Area Water and Wastewater, Worcester County owned and operated group, that they consider improvements to the appearance of the stockade fences throughout the community. And I just want to make a comment. I'll try to keep it short. I know you have a lot of very serious business to attend to. But I just want to support the idea. I'd like to just circulate a couple of photographs that I had made. Well, if I can, you can pass this around. But this is actually one of the pumping stations. It's pumping station L. that's in our community. And I think if you look at that, anyone would know immediately that it's been neglected. Here's another photograph. I'd like to see it. If you'd circulate, if you don't mind.
Dave, would it appropriate to point out to Grant that we're not going to conduct other business here today?
Well, I think he knows that.
No, I'm
Okay,
going to make it
fine,
very short.
He has a right to make fun.
No, that's fine.
That is 5 minutes. And, yeah, we've,
I just want you to know that prior to making that motion, that photograph there will demonstrate that some of these fences are much larger than they need to be. They're enclosing larger areas than they need to. Here's a photograph of what they have in Riddle Farm, and that's what I'm hoping that we could have in Ocean Pines, and I believe it would improve our community. And I'd just like the board to know that prior to coming to that meeting and making the motion for a resolution, that I had worked through a letter to Judy Boggs, meeting with the Ocean Water Company's group, the people that manage that, and made appeals to them through official channels to get them to take some action. And they probably haven't because of the cost of doing it. But I want the board to know that my resolution, if you read it closely, I was very careful in my wording of the resolution. What I'm really hoping is that they will take a reasonable approach in a reasonable time, look at the problem, and implement changes that improve those things. There are 19 of them in the community, and I think 19 of those pumping stations throughout the community, and I think that changing those and making them look more modern will have a dramatic impact on the appearance of the community in general. So that's that's all I have to say. That's my public comment.
thank you, Grant. I think Mr. Hilty also knows that it never hurts to remind the board of anything.
I know Grant, and I think he'll be back.
Thank you, Pete.
Right.
Ray Unger, 22 Liberty Street. As everybody knows, the board has the authority to spend money. And they do it based on the things that Ocean Pines needs, and most of the time, it's very important done. But over the last year, there's been $100,000 out of budget money spent or so with the improvements down at the tennis courts and the like, which have made them beautiful. They've spent money on an appraisal on a piece of property in Ocean City we know we're not going to sell. And now there's a proposal out that Mr. Grant has brought up to spend over 2 years, maybe $140,000 for the improvement of the appearance of these places around in Ocean Pines that he was talking about. What I would implore the board to do is, last year we pounded on the general manager to make cutbacks within the organization to come close to a budget resolution that would be a little easier on everybody to live with. The people that sacrificed last year are the people that work for us, the employees of Ocean Pines. They didn't get some of the raises that they were due according to COLAs and the like. And what I'm simply asking you to do is, before you start spending or looking at some of these money, let's take a look at what it would cost, and based on a $3.9 million point of what it costs to take care of our employees, you're looking at maybe $135,000. In a $13 million budget, that's 1%. And what I'm simply saying is, this year, don't ask the employees of Ocean Pines to sacrifice. Take 1% of the total budget and pass it on to the people that take care of us. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time and trouble.
Thank you, Ray.
I do have to comment. Any expenditures for this?
I'm sorry, Grant. Yeah, I know this, we can't turn this into a debate. This will come up at the, we each get 5 minutes. This will come up at the regular board meeting, and both you and Ray will have a chance to add further comments.
We understand. It's not part of our budget.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't come out of our pocket,
Okay.
Not budget.
not budget.
Joe?
I think I'll say what Grant wanted to say, and that is,
Good, that's always the best way.
OPA is not going to be paying for this directly, but the Worcester County would come out of the county's funds, which we all pay anyway, but it would be a county expenditure.
Okay, and at that point was addressed at the annual meeting too, and there was another side to it yet, so again.
I got it. I got to make a public comment. It really won't come out of the county budget. It'll come out of the dues we pay, or out of the EDU charges we pay.
Water and sewer
assessed for the
charges.
Ocean Pines service area
Service area.
only.
Correct.
But we pay that.
But we pay it.
Okay, well, I know that this debate will be self-ending because there's only so many people.
mean Salisbury's
in the
not gonna pay
room
for
to
it?
comment. Okay, are there any other public comments? Okay, let's move on to the election of officers in the following order. The president. Do I have a nomination for president?
Yeah, I'm gonna nominate Bill Rico for president.
I'll nominate you, our standing president.
Are there any other nominations? Is there any discussion? Okay, that having been said, we're going to go to a ballot, which goes furiously.
While she's passing out the ballots, the rules are that there's only one nomination, voice vote is.
Voice vote.
Appropriate, or more than one, then you do it by this method, correct?
Right.
I'm saying that for other people too.
Feel like I'm at church.
Only you take it out of the bucket when it goes by money.
Only if they're not looking.
Move that.
Oh, that's yours, I'm sorry. I have to put my tie on here pretty soon.
I just brought a rope to throw over the rafters.
I'm not.
Does anybody set that precedent, or am I breaking the rules?
What's that?
Not having a tie. Does this mean I get kicked off the board?
Mr. Rico has been elected.
Well, congratulations, Bill.
Okay.
Okay, so we just proceed with the agenda. Is that what you did last year?
Yep, that's it.
For those of you who voted for me, thank you for your vote. I'll do the best I can. I think in the past, what we've done, as I recall, is we just started off with the officers next and say, okay, let's nominate for vice president, let's nominate for treasurer, et cetera. But I'd like to just talk about that for a minute before we do that, okay? Which is the most important key office? Is it the vice president, is it the treasurer, is it the secretary, or whatever? They're all important. But the treasurer, to me, takes on duties that are, you have to know a little bit more about that particular function than you might have something else. Last year, as you recall, I put my hand up when I was nominated for some other office, and I said I wanted to be the treasurer. I only did that because I was interested in the budget, but I also knew I could get some advice from somebody on the Budget and Finance Committee who knew a hell of a lot more than I did about it, and that was Pete Gumzak. And, I knew I could get some advice and guidance and insight into the auditing, financial management function, in addition to what I already knew as a government employee and as a business owner. But anyway, those two positions are really important. All of them important, but I wonder if we shouldn't have some discussion about who should be treasurer first.
You didn't just have that?
We've got Bob Thompson, and I've talked to Bob Thompson about this. We've got Pete, And unless anybody else thinks probably those two are probably the most qualified to serve in those particular capacities.
If we're talking about treasurer, can I then nominate Pete as treasurer and we can move along?
I think the next thing is vice president on the agenda.
I'm sorry, we're
Yeah.
talking about treasurer. You
Well, I'm
just
talking
skip
about the
around.
two billets, and if we nominate somebody as a vice president and he's elected, that would preclude him as being president, so.
Or treasurer.
Treasurer, excuse me.
I can't be treasurer. Because of my full-time job, the SEC doesn't allow me to perform the duties of treasurer of any organization.
I see a mandate coming.
Yeah, well, I can't. I mean, I appreciate the thought there, but unfortunately, I'd have to decline to even
Okay.
run for that position.
Okay, now, let me talk about the vice president. I served as vice president for a year, and as a president, I would want to ask my vice president to take on certain functions and roles greater than what I've seen in the past year for the past few years, okay? And, sort of, not in the role of an executive officer, because that's the management function, but more of a role as a deputy, as I see it in my experience in the military, where, would you take over the role of overseeing the revision of our goals and objectives project and things like that, as opposed to, and take that thing for action, which we kind of did anyway, didn't we, Dave, in many ways?
Well, yeah, I guess I'm still trying to, you want to discuss this, but at the same time, it's got to end up in a nomination.
All right.
And we also have to know, I think in advance, who's willing to do the job. And if you don't know that, now, I think, Bob has said very clearly that he can't. And
Can't be
or
the
he
treasurer.
doesn't
Correct.
feel that he can be the treasurer. I can't. My
Yeah,
primary
so
job
that's-
doesn't allow
Okay, so that makes
it.
sense. So let me ask, who is willing to be the vice president? Who would like to be the vice president?
Be willing to do that?
Well, I'd be willing to do that too. However, I'd also be willing to be the treasurer, and I think under the set of circumstances here with Bob's inability to serve in that capacity, however much I might like to be vice president, but anyway, I'd be happy to be treasurer, and that would benefit the organization, and I've conveyed that to others as well, that if that's the role that I'm asked to play, I'm very happy to do that and believe I'm qualified to do it. So with that, I'd be, if we move back to nominations.
All right, let's go back to nominations. Do we have any nominations for vice president?
I'd like to nominate-
finish the discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to just throw this in, if you don't mind.
I don't.
Since you extended it to treasurer, I understand, first of all, that, the dynamics of this is such that, the president really has to have the confidence in whoever he's working with, either as treasurer or vice president or secretary. So that's probably of paramount importance. But since you did mention who's qualified to be treasurer, I would humbly point out that I've served as treasurer for 2 years of the park under what is arguably one of the most successful transitions from development to homeowners association that I can think of, and 1 year as treasurer of, so I would hate to let it be said that I'm not qualified to do that job. I kind of think I am.
Do you want to do the job?
I'm willing to do the job, but again, I think the most important thing is that, it's really who's the president is most comfortable with and is going to work most closely with, and I think that's obvious to everybody.
All right, thank you, Dave.
Well said.
Yeah. All right, so do we have a nomination for vice president?
I'd like to nominate Bob Thompson.
Are there any other nominations? All right, then by acclamation, Eugene, we're going to nominate somebody else?
No, that's fine.
All right, then by acclamation, the vice president is Bob Thompson. Is that correct, Joe?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right, we'll move on to treasurer. Do we have any nominations for treasurer?
Nominate Pete Thompson.
Are there any other nominations?
Dave, do you
I'll
want?
nominate Dave.
I was going to nominate Dave.
Okay, go ahead, you can nominate
I
Dave.
nominate Dave.
Okay, we have any other nominations? All right, then we have to have an election.
Can I ask a question before we do
Yes,
that? Les, are you willing to be the secretary again?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I just didn't want to know if you want to do something else before we We got completely around the table.
No, it's going to.
Okay, cool.
Thank you, Les.
I have qualifications of my own, but I don't have the background that Pete does, and I'm comfortable doing the secretary job.
You can tell me what they are.
And besides, Phyllis has already paid me off.
You'd be surprised the check I got to not be anything.
Marty, you ever notice a difference in minutes when Phyllis is not present and he has to take them?
Did you? Oh, wait a minute.
While we're waiting for the vote to be counted, I look here at the appointment of following positions. Would any of you object if we also act on chair committee assignment for the Recs and Parks Committee when we get down to appointing positions?
BG.
No objection?
Well,
Not on the agenda, but.
the problem with that is, I don't guess I object, but there's 13 committees, and there's 7 board members, and some of them are specifically aligned with the president. Of course, we can change that too. And I guess all I'm saying is that, sorting, having done it last year, I know that sorting that out, is basically a matter of, picking up the phone, calling people, saying, and some of the things are not only just, I like this committee better than that committee, but it's when they meet and what you have to do with it. So
I think he was, weren't you just talking about an appointment to one committee?
one committee.
we have
all
one-
I'm
we have a
saying
sheet.
is if you pick that one out.
Well, it's the only one sheet in our, that's been in our box that's pending. That's the only
Right,
thing.
it's
whoa.
to replace Barbara Kissel.
It's the only one. And rather than have her wait for the
I'm
next
sorry.
meeting, I
I'm
would put her
sorry. I
in.
was
Put her in her
totally-
seat.
Okay, I misunderstood.
I totally misunderstood.
I knew where you were
No,
I
it's
just
only
said-
be- I was
you
doing it
said
today.
the correct thing. I read liaison
Yeah.
into the.
No.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
only
Yeah,
because she's
okay.
pending, and rather than have her sit and wonder,
No.
I think we ought to approve.
Even though I'm enjoying those Tuesday nights off.
All right, when we get to that,
No, we're talking about,
Okay.
when you were saying going down to appointments, I
No,
thought you meant liaisons. All right.
no, just one.
This is for
No
what?
liaison.
Foreman?
Yeah.
Is it?
Okay,
Sure.
thank you, Joe.
Chairman.
Oh, chair.
Mr. Gomzak.
Mr. Gumsack,
Congratulations.
congratulations, Pete.
Thank you.
Moving along to
Wonder why it took so
secretary.
long, though. Jeez.
Moving along to secretary, and it's not that I'm in any way saying that isn't an important position, Mr. Purcell, but I knew that that you're going to probably stay in the same seat. So I don't know that. Do we have any nominations for treasurer? For secretary?
I would like to nominate.
Already.
Are there any, would you serve, were you willing to serve?
I am.
Is there any other nominations for secretary? By acclamation, Les is the secretary.
You can really read his minutes, too. He does a great job.
All right, moving on to
And if you
appointment of
haven't
the
seen
following
it,
positions. The assistant treasurer is the general manager. Recording assistant secretary is the executive secretary. We're going to delay on legal counsel and auditors. Now we're going to get to the parliamentarian, who is normally a board member. And for the life of me, I don't know who the parliamentarian was for the last board.
Bill Zawacki.
Bill Zawacki. Okay. The role of parliamentarian is that when we have a question of procedure, that this person is supposed to whisper in the president's ear and say, you made a mistake, and you ought to look into Robert's rules, and here's a way to do it. Do we have a nomination? Does anybody want to serve as parliamentarian? Do we have a nomination for parliamentarian?
Then I would nominate Dave Stevens for
Dave is
parliamentarian.
nominated. Is there any other nominations? Then by acclamation, Dave, you are the parliamentarian. If I may, I'd like to discuss that in Robert's rules for a minute. If you read through Robert's rules, it says in some page that if you are a board of about 12 or less, certain rules are relaxed and you can do certain things. The part of that I like the best is, I think it's on page 51, I'm not sure, but it talks about making decisions by general or unanimous consent. And for example, I'll just give one example here. When it's time to close the meeting and the agenda's through and the president looks around and says, well, we're through today, unless there's any other subjects that we need to talk about or whatever, and unless there's an objection, you look around and you say, the meeting's adjourned. We don't need to make a motion and second it, although it's proper to do either way. And I would hope that you understand that with me as president, when I look around and say without objection or something, that if you have an objection, you would speak up, because quite frankly, I encourage and like honest, polite, and sincere dissent. I really do. I think without dissent on an issue, there's no point in us being around here. What have you said, Marty? Myself,
Oh, yeah, if we all agree, only one of us has got to attend the
Only one's got to
meeting.
attend the meeting. So I really mean that. So anyway, okay, moving right along to timekeeper, the executive secretary, Phyllis. All right? And then, because we have one nomination and application for filling a chairperson's role in our boxes, I don't know if you had a chance to review it or not, but what it is, it's Marie Gilmore, who's been on that committee for quite some time, been involved in the skate park and all the stuff. So with your consent, I will appoint Marie, yes,
I
discussion?
have one question.
Yes.
How many years? Does anybody know? I mean, are we
You mean,
appointing?
how long is the appointment for?
No, how long has she been serving?
Okay.
Because
Are we
we're
appointing a lame duck?
Yeah, we're starting to jam up on people that have been on committees forever and a day. And speaking of lame ducks, you don't want to try to extend anybody on a committee from my last year, because it's gotten to the point where it's just the same faces. Does anybody know how long?
You want me to look?
I think it's on the
Well, let's
application.
approve it, but in the,
Let's approve it.
We're gonna approve it
because we need-
regardless,
We need
but-
continuity there, yeah, thank you.
we need to know.
Yeah,
I
Marty,
would like, I think it's important that we do know, because if she only has a year left, we've pretty much been pretty hard and fast, Bill, about not extending people. So if we're gonna make her chairman of the, chairman of this committee, we ought to know that we may be extending her a year or two.
Okay.
Well,
Or
maybe not.
replacing
She
her.
I'll
says,
replace her.
she says herself she's been on a committee since 2005.
Which would be 4 years.
So she had two left.
That would be fine.
I don't think I got a copy of that.
I recall it being on the
I would say,
application, so
Joe,
yeah.
even if she has only 1 year left, that 1 year might buy time to get the next
Yeah,
person.
exactly.
We just have to let her know.
But I would
that
Yeah,
still
it's
like
just
to
nice to
know.
know up front, so we
She
can
was
tell her.
appointed in 2004.
And how many years do you get?
6.
6 in total, right?
So she's got another year, right?
She has a year.
Got one
Okay,
more
but-
year.
But just rather than to keep her in limbo, we're going to approve her anyway, like you said, Marty. But I think it's a good point, because wherever Marty has brought up the fact that somebody's in extension, usually it's turned out it's probably a good idea not to get new faces to the board. So with your consent, I will appoint Marie Gilmore as the chair of the Recs and Parks Advisory Committee.
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay. Before we adjourn, I'd like to pass out a couple things. This is really interesting. And what we need to do is we need to talk about how we're going to organize our schedule for the next year, who we're going to appoint as board liaisons to the various advisory committees, and those kind of things. And I believe that's so important. And discuss our where we are on our goals and objectives and our priorities and all that kind of stuff. I believe that's so important. We need to have a meeting to do this in the near future, okay? And I propose that we have a meeting next week either on the 26th or the 27th of August. It'd be a special meeting of the board to discuss our priorities, our goals,
That is-
the annual calendar, agree as to who should be the advisory committee chairman, other subjects that might need to be
No,
talked
it's the
about.
27th.
August 26th or 27th, and...
26, you've got a bunch of important meetings already. If my
I'm
calendar's...
talking about doing it, by the way, I'm talking about doing it at 6:30 here in the boardroom.
In the evening?
No, Marty, AM.
Well, you know what?
18:30, Marty.
That's about the only two times you can fit it in.
18:30.
Because there's a budget and finance
I
at
know,
9.
I got that at
And there's a
9:30.
BOG
There's
meeting
a
at
BOG
3.
meeting.
How about the
Maybe it could be our
27th?
meeting day.
Yeah.
It's
The reason
right.
the reason I'm
That would only
doing,
disrupt one day.
the reason I suggest doing it at night is because I know Bob Thompson is among us, of the two of us that are still working.
What?
3.
3,
Well, I work.
you're one of the two.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And you know,
Also
we
race at
won't have to worry
6:30
about
on Wednesday
times
nights.
thing. Would 6:30 on Wednesday be okay?
I can't be there.
You can't be
How
there?
about the 27th?
Would you like, would Thursday be better?
I'm sorry, let me ask something.
All Wednesday evenings I race.
Okay, okay,
May I ask a question?
sure.
Have you already talked to Bob about the need to have it at 6:30 on this,
I have.
for this
and
particular meeting?
I have, in the event, it's a short notice, so in the event that I was elected president, I sat down and talked to Bob about a lot of things, with other board members too, and I talked about a need for a meeting, and we talked about doing it in the evening, because we've done a lot of meetings in the evenings before.
I brought up when I talked to Bill and actually Dave Stevens before I went about, having the ability to be here and serve in the full capacity. And I said once in a while if we could mix in an evening so it's not always during the day for me, I would appreciate it. And coming off last week during the day, this week during the day, I thought if we do one next week, if we wouldn't mind moving to an evening, that would certainly help me a little bit. So I appreciate, if you guys would consider it. And I can start 4 or 5 would also be evening for me, but it doesn't take it doesn't necessarily take up my.
Well, see, that's a different scenario, because that allows evening activities as well as accommodate
Absolutely.
Bob's work schedule as well, so.
Right. Yes, Marty, I think it's important that you be there, Marty, so
It
would
is.
Thursday be okay?
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
We also have a meeting out here in space where we're going to sit down and have a closed meeting to discuss the Bayside lease. Can
Yes.
we incorporate that at the same
Absolutely,
time?
absolutely.
Then I will the vote will have to go without me. I'll
Why
be
don't we
here.
look at
Okay.
Thursday?
No, Wednesday's fine.
And I would like to invite any other closed topic meetings to that also,
Marty, if you would rather do it Thursday, I can do it Thursday. Is
Thursday's
everybody else here
good
do
with
Wednesday's
Thursday?
fine.
I don't have a
It's fine.
calendar in front of me, but right
Wednesday's
now.
fine. It's fine. It's written down. Believe me, it's fine. At my age, anytime I
Then
take
then we'll
off
do
a
it
race, it's
Wednesday.
good.
I'll give the topics I like to discuss to Phyllis, and I invite any of you to add on to
I don't
those,
care. My calendar.
What time did we decide?
6:30 on Wednesday.
I don't know
I
about
thought we were
I
just
don't know
talking
about
about-
adding on,
Bill,
but I have
consider.
a concern about dealing with too many significant issues. I mean, at first it started out with we're talking about administrative things, but now you're talking about something of real substance. As if, it was sort of on the same line as setting the calendar for the next year or making committee appointments. And I don't think it's appropriate. I
Do you have
think,
anything else on there?
well, I don't, no, I don't, well, first of all, I don't know what's on there, except that we're going to have a meeting.
Okay.
Okay, and then I know that somebody suggested, Marty, that can't we have to do something about the Bayside lease.
And that was gonna happen,
And that
I
does-
thought that week
That
anyway.
does have to be a meeting, but I could see that, that certainly could be a meeting in itself, and I don't know how many other things we can dispose of.
Well, what I'd like to do, Dave, if you'd let me,
Okay.
is I'd like to invite any of you to always and any time suggest agenda items you would like us to be covering, okay? When we get those agenda items, we'll look at them, and if there's time, an appropriate time to cover them, we'll cover them. If not, we'll put them in for a subsequent meeting, okay? But I encourage and will encourage everybody to let us know, let me know, and let the rest of the board members know what they might want to be talking about.
All I'm doing is expressing a concern that we not handle, we're talking about a 6:30 meeting, that we not handle too many substantive issues. Now, I don't know.
I won't. I'll listen to you, I won't, okay?
Okay, so I don't know what the agenda is yet for this meeting that we're gonna have Wednesday. We're gonna see it soon, I hope.
We will.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Bill, I don't understand why we're still talking about 6:30. I thought, Bob, as we had a little dialogue here, we were agreeing to meet around 4:30 for that
I
meeting.
said I can be available 4:30.
Exactly.
anytime
Okay.
after.
Yeah, that's what we,
Well,
we're trying to accommodate a number of different people's interests.
excuse me, I wouldn't,
You okay?
Anytime
Can we say
before and
4:30?
after, I'm good.
4:30, Bob?
4:30, would 4:30 be okay for people?
Well, I didn't bring my calendar with me, so I mean, quite honestly, without having my calendar in front of me, what I have for meetings,
It's okay with me.
Other
It's okay with
organizations.
me.
If it's a 2-hour meeting, it's fine. The problem is, I will have not have eaten,
Well, right.
and at 6:30,
I'll bring you a sandwich.
you think I'm a grumpy son. Normally, I would be really grumpy at 6:30. Huh?
I'll bring you.
Grumpy.
Bring my
I'm available anytime.
4:30 it is?
Would you rather do it at 4:30?
Yeah.
Fine.
Fine, 4:30, okay. Would you all, I just passed something down to you all that I was looking at the other day, and it really is kind of an amazing document. I dated it wrong. It's dated September 16th, 2008, okay? And I don't want you to read it now, but I'd like you to read it between now and the meeting, because it talks about the goals and objectives that we approved back at this meeting on the 16th of September, and I think you all will find it quite amazing to see, and Dave and I chaired this committee, an ad hoc committee we chaired to do this. You'll find it quite amazing that we are sort of on track. And a lot of the things we're doing, and there are a lot of things we didn't do, but we need to look at this next meeting and say, are these the basic guiding principles we want to operate under? Okay? Next, I've got one for you too.
Thank you.
Pete, that Wednesday date is what, the 27th?
26.
26th?
26.
26.
26 at 4:30.
What was that date?
You're gonna bring trumpet. Send you a little snack.
Next, I've got a list of major objectives to accomplish that I picked out based upon those guiding principles and the goals and objectives, or the vision and mission statement, and our goals and objectives. And these are just mine, but I discussed them with a few of you, and I'd like you to review those also. And I'll attach these, by the way, in an email. Review those also. And we need to come up with an agreement. Are we going to do these things, and how are we going to approach them, and all that? Okay. The next sheet is a list of things. And Phyllis, if you'd really take a very close look at this, I'd appreciate it, because we need to have a year in sight plan and put down all the things that this board wants to do as early as possible that we can do them. For example, last year we decided, which is a great idea, I think, to have a volunteer appreciation night. I was in Florida, I couldn't go.
It was great.
And are we going to have it again, and if so, when? And then are we going to have a meeting with the county commissioners, and if so, when? Doesn't mean we're going to do them in those days, because we got, but we need to plan those things out and put them on the calendar, and then they may happen. So what I've done is I've listed, I just brainstormed through my calendar for the last couple of years, put things on there, put a reference if appropriate, and I'd like you to look at those things, and we can flesh that thing out. Now, what I'll do is I'll work with the vice president and the treasurer, because we can't have 4 people, sometime the next couple of days to flesh, and Phyllis and the general manager in a little meeting here to come write all those things down, so we'll be able to present those at our meeting next week, okay? And the last thing is a advisory committee assignment sheet, taking off the old ones. Please look at that, and then at the meeting next week, we'll discuss who is best to fill those assignments.
I have one question on the calendar. There's an item number 6. Executive committee meetings. I'm thinking that's not an executive committee of the board, it's rather the executive council.
What it is, it's the
I know what it is. I think
advisory committee executive, it's where the president, the vice president,
I understand. I've attended the
and
last two
chair meet.
of all the
But I want to
committees.
schedule those way in advance, so they'll know,
Is it? Okay.
I want to schedule those way in advance, so those committee chair will know when those meetings would be with plenty
So
of
this
notice.
is the committee chairs?
Yes.
I think it's called the executive council.
Yes, it is.
Did I screw that up?
Yeah. There's no executive committee per se, it's executive council, I believe.
Yes, it
It's
is.
I mean,
executive
I just want to
council.
clarify what it is.
It's, yeah, and it's covered in resolution C-09.
It's council.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So, unless I've forgotten anything, do I forget anything?
I don't know.
Unless there's.
You're on your own now,
I
buddy.
don't know what I don't know.
And unless there's, and I want to also discuss, well, I'll tell you one thing. Also, I wanted us to decide next week is how we're going to run our meetings. For example, what Bill Zawacki started with the workshops, in principle, I support 100%. I think we need to be able to allow those people who are attending the meetings, when we get to a topic, to invite their give and take. I really do. I like that. However, I don't think we need to do it by having a workshop and having a meeting. If we have discussion topics, I would prefer, I'll get your advice later on this, but I would prefer to stop and say, okay, now let's have a general discussion of this. We'll depart from the rules without objection. Let the people talk about that subject. Okay, we're going back to the rules and continue on. I think we can make our meetings shorter, but we can achieve the same end results.
I think we'd be dispensing with Robert's Rules of Order for one thing, but I don't, I mean, if we're going to have a meeting, I think we conduct it according to Robert's, and that's the beauty of what we do now.
I'd be more than happy to listen to that
Yeah.
next week, and I'll do, however this group feels is the best way to run that, that's what we'll do. Yes, Marty?
Anything that makes a meeting shorter, I
Yeah.
second it.
Okay. All right, well, I just wanted to talk about the subject, and we can think about that on your own and talk it among yourselves, and we'll get back on that, okay? So unless there's any other topic in this organizational meeting to discuss, and without objection, the meeting is closed, or over, and we'll go into, we'll take a break and go into the legal portion.
Yes, sir.
Did you want to, for the public, say what we're doing here with the next
Yeah,
session?
why are we going into,
You have to vote to go into legal, don't you, Joe?
If it's a closed session, we have to vote on it.
Yeah, you have to vote on it. Going into and coming out.
This is a briefing just by
if it's for
Joe Moore for the
On
benefit of the
pending
new
legal
members.
matters.
If
It's part of
we
the-
could all leave, the other board members could leave, except we want to hear it too again because we forget.
All right, well, okay, then we could either start the next meeting and vote to go into closed session, or we could do it right now.
You make a motion.
So the purpose of the meeting is to discuss pending legal matters within the board, okay? So that's what we need to do. Do we have 2/3 vote to do it?
Before we move into that, we have pictures to take, and I know there's some people here with cameras that probably want to
Yeah.
take the
Yeah,
pictures
let's
and
do
then
that.
we're gonna take a break.
So why don't we take a break,
Take a
take our
break.
pictures, and then move into the
Thank you.
closed
as long as
session.
they have my Astra dues, we can go ahead and get it done.
Bill, may I comment for the public and perhaps the press as well? This meeting that we're going to go into is not because of any particular agenda item. It's Pete Gomsack requesting, as a new board member, part of my orientation is to spend a little time with legal counsel, and I think Bob Thompson wanted to do the same thing. And so I think that was what we're trying to do and accomplish here is a little briefing for Bob and Pete, who are new to the board, with our legal counsel. I think the office was extended by Dave Stevens for other board members to participate in that if they so chose. And so it's not some special meeting because of some special circumstance, or it's just helping us to get on board.
Yeah, thank you, Pete, and what's,
No good press is what he said.
Joe's here, so that saves him time coming back.
Right.
All right. So we'll adjourn, we'll get our picture taken, and we'll start in closed session.
Now, we do need a motion, right?
We
do it
either
by
need a motion
acclamation.
now or when we start, but I'll make the motion that we...
Well, I think you have to do it in open session.
Okay, well... then-
I'll make a motion that we go into closed session for the purpose of getting briefed on legal matters by our general counsel.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.